Prologue, The Lost Star. The stars were burning. Peter Bakari gripped the controls of his fighter as his squad streaked through the upper atmosphere of the Arctron belt, weaving between bursts of plasma and the remnants of shattered Federation cruisers. Alarms howled in his cockpit. Red indicators flashed across the HUD. But Peter's focus was absolute, sharp and unshakable. He had always been good under pressure. "Bakari, form up on my 6," came Lieutenant Nori's voice over the comms, distorted by static. "We're pulling out. Coordinates locked. Jump in 30. Peter banked hard. Evading a fireball as one of the alien interceptors exploded. The skirmish with the Drexy mercenaries had turned fast. What was supposed to be a reconnaissance intercept had devolved into a brutal, full-on dogfight. His fingers danced over the console. Targeting was shot. Maneuvering thrusters were failing, and his NAV system refused to sync with the squad's retreat jump point. His starboard wing had taken a glancing hit earlier. Now it was venting coolant, dragging his flight path off-center like a wounded bird spiraling out of control. "I'm hit," Peter growled, jaw clenched. "Nav's gone haywire. I'll try to jump anyway. Just go." "Peter." He cut the channel. No time. His breathing steadied as he set the emergency warp manually. It was risky, especially with corrupted data, but staying behind was worse. He thought of Earth, of his parents on the farm, of the smell of the pine trees in the morning dew, and the weight of a German shepherd puppy asleep in his lap, of Kaya, the dog who had once saved his life at the cost of her own. He forced those thoughts away. Not now. The stars stretched and twisted as he initiated the jump. And then, something went wrong. Space ruptured with a scream of tearing metal and fractured light. His body was slammed into his seat. The stars disappeared. He fell. He awoke to silence. The cockpit canopy was shattered, sunlight filtering through dense green branches above. Smoke curled from the wreckage of his downed fighter, nestled awkwardly in the clearing of forest that looked nothing like any charted world he'd seen. Peter groaned, unfastening his harness and stumbling out into the soft, mossy soil. His pilot suit was scorched, visor cracked, and his emergency beacon was blinking uselessly. No signal, no satellites, no Federation grid. Only trees, towering, alien, and ancient. And something else. A distant rustle. A tremor in the earth beneath his boots. He reached for his sidearm and looked to the sky. The stars had led him astray. He wasn't just off course. He was alone on a world no map had marked. And something was watching him. Chapter 1, The Silent Green. The forest was alive with sound. Bird-like chirps echoed from the canopy above, harmonizing with the gentle hum of wind through violet-leaved trees. Insects buzzed, some with wings like glass, others glowing faintly in the shade. Beneath Peter's boots, the moss was springy and deep green, speckled with pale bioluminescent veins that pulsed in rhythm with the setting sun. Still no signal. Peter stood on a rocky rise overlooking the clearing, where his ruined fighter smoldered. The twisted wreckage was little more than a burnt skeleton now, a metallic scar in the vibrant landscape. His comm unit clicked softly in his ear. He'd been trying every hour to hail his squad, the Federation emergency channel, even open space relays. Nothing, just static. He sighed and turned off the transmitter. For now, he was marooned, but he wasn't dead. The forest hadn't killed him. It could have. There were sounds at night, low, rumbling growls, the rhythmic thud of massive footsteps, howls that prickled the hairs on the back of his neck. And once or twice, he caught flashes of movement just beyond the edge of his vision. Shadows with too many legs. Shapes that didn't fit with any creature he'd studied in basic xenobiology. Something was watching him. He was sure of it, but nothing had approached yet. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was caution. Or maybe it was waiting for him to let his guard down. He didn't intend to. Peter spent his first days setting up a makeshift camp near the wreck, stringing a tarp between two broad trees and salvaging what little was usable from the fighter's emergency cache. A collapsible solar heater, a water purifier, an MRE pack, 2 meals, 1 bar, 1 ration of coffee, an emergency scanner. That scanner became his lifeline. He explored the nearby flora cautiously, scanning anything that looked remotely edible. The device gave color-coded readouts: green for safe, yellow for caution, red for poisonous. Most things were yellow. Some were red. But enough were green for him to try. A bulbous fruit that tasted like honeyed apple. A stalk of fibrous greens that turned blue when boiled. Bright orange mushrooms that crackled faintly when bitten, fizzing like soda on his tongue. Odd but sustaining. And as the days passed, Peter noticed something else. The planet was beautiful. The sky turned shades of gold and silver at dusk. And at night, the stars were so dense he could barely find the constellations he knew. Strange birds sang lullabies in unfamiliar scales, and once he saw a herd of antelope-like creatures gliding across a glade, their hooves never quite touching the ground. It reminded him of home, of Earth, of misty mornings on the farm, of goat bells, of Kaya, curled up beside the fireplace. He found himself smiling more often than he expected. By the end of the fourth day, the scanner died. Its screen flickered, then dimmed with pathetic chirp, and Peter sat staring at it for a long time. No more color codes, no more easy answers. But he knew enough now. He'd mapped the safe fruits, remembered the patterns, and followed the instincts honed in a childhood spent in woods not so different from this one. He was surviving. That night he built a fire. A real one, not just a solar heater. He needed the smoke to keep the insects away. And, if he was being honest, the fire made him feel less alone. It was while gathering with the next morning that he saw them. Eyes. Dozens of them. Amber, reflective, watching him from the trees across the stream. At first, he froze, breath caught in his throat. They were wolf-like, but larger than any other species. Their fur was dark silver, almost metallic, with streaks of glowing lines along their shoulders and down their spines, bioluminescent veins. Not unlike the moss he'd seen. Their eyes weren't just intelligent. They were calculating. They made no sound, no snarl, no charge. They just watched. One of them, slightly larger than the rest, stepped forward. It tilted its head, the way dogs sometimes did when trying to read human emotion. Peter felt it again, that connection. The way dogs had always responded to him, sensing his calm, his presence. He didn't raise his weapon. He didn't move. And slowly, without a sound, the pack turned and vanished into the woods. He stood alone again, but something had changed. They'd acknowledged him, and in some deep, primal way, he had acknowledged them. Chapter 2, The Hunted. The wolves didn't return. Not directly, at least. But Peter felt them nearby, always just out of sight. Sometimes he'd catch the flicker of silver fur between trees, or hear the faint shuffle of paws trailing him at a distance. They moved with purpose, never revealing themselves fully. Watching, judging, and Peter welcomed it. It reminded him of the dogs back home. Kaya, in particular, always close, always quiet, always watching. Her loss still ached deep in his chest, like scar tissue over a wound that had never really healed. He'd sworn to himself, after that day in the woods, that he would never stand by and let one of his animals die for him again. Days passed. He explored further, mapping the terrain, tracking edible plants now by memory and instinct. His scanner was dead, but he had learned what to trust. Routines kept him grounded. Fire at night, foraging in the morning, patrol at noon. The forest was so alien yet so familiar. Sunlight filtered through massive leaves that fluttered like sails. Brightly colored birds sang unfamiliar songs. Once, he saw a creature with translucent wings fold itself into a flower to sleep. But not everything was peaceful. It began with silence. Even before his ears noticed it, his instincts reacted. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up, his breath shortened. No birds, no wind, no life, and then he heard it, a deep, guttural growl, low and hungry. The thing emerged from the underbrush like a living landslide, massive, muscular, covered in black and green plating that rippled with each step. Its eyes were soulless, empty. Its jaw split open in two places, revealing rows of pale, jagged teeth. Predator. Apex. Peter ran. Branches slapped his face, mud splashed up his legs. But he didn't stop. He darted through the forest, leaping roots, ducking under vines. The creature thundered after him, crashing through everything in its path. He slid into the creek, boots slipping on the rocks, scrambling to the far bank. Water soaked through his clothes, and his side burned from where a branch had torn into him. But the creature didn't follow. It stopped, lifted its head, sniffed. Peter's heart dropped. It had picked up a different scent. The wolves. He knew before he saw where it turned. It had found their trail, probably fresher than his. No, he whispered. He could leave. He could hide. The pack would fight or flee. Nature would take its course. But he remembered Kaya, her body broken but still warm, her eyes looking into his as she bled out in the snow. He remembered his own voice years ago, shaking with tears. Never again. I swear, never again. Peter followed. He moved faster than before, pain ignored, heart hammering. His hands gripped the metal spear he'd made from wreckage, knuckles white. He found them near a ravine. The wolves were cornered, tense, growling, forming a semicircle around their leader, an older, battle-scarred alpha with a streak of white fur down its flank. The beast lunged. The wolves scattered, striking back with rapid flanks and fangs, but they couldn't pierce its armor. One was knocked aside, yelping in pain. Peter couldn't stand it. "They're not just animals," he growled, breath hot and raw. "They're mine." And he charged. He roared as he drove the spear into the creature's eye, put his full weight behind it. The predator screamed, whipping its head violently, flinging Peter to the ground. Pain flared through his ribs, but he forced himself up. The alpha wolf saw the opening. It lunged, tearing into the creature's exposed throat. Another wolf joined, clamping onto a hind leg, pulling. The beast staggered, crashing sideways. Peter grabbed a jagged rock and slammed it into the thing's jaw, again and again until it stopped moving. Silence fell. Peter collapsed to his knees, panting, blood dripping from his brow. His shoulder ached. His clothes were soaked in mud and something fouler. But the wolves were alive. He looked up to see them surrounding him. This time, they didn't keep their distance. The alpha approached, eyes locked on his. It sniffed his face, then gently bumped its forehead to his chest. The others followed. Peter sat, stunned, as the pack lay down around him. Close, but not threatening. Trusting. Not pets. Not wild. But kin.